October, guys. I wanted to start off the Halloween season by giving you a tutorial on the Book of the Dead. What you'll need for this: a rectangular cardboard box, craft foam sheets that you can find at the craft store, and heavier foam, and also a wood burning tool. You also need contact cement, plasti dip, glue gun, model magic, and black and gold paints. So for my Book of the Dead, I started with this box that is very similar to a cereal box, and what I did was cut off all of the sides. My box did not come with the top and bottom sides of it, so what I did was just measured it out and cut that out of a different piece of cardboard. Next, what you're going to want to do is line up your top cover and your bottom with the foam that you're going to cover it with. Just a little bit of hindsight, I don't think I gave myself enough room because this is going to wrap over the edge. So make sure if you don't want to do it like me, then you give yourself a little bit more room because that makes it a whole lot easier. Next, you're going to cover the whole face of it with contact cement. Now let me tell you, this stuff is amazing. You could use another type of glue if you want, but this works the best for me. Now you're going to want to let that dry for a little bit. And then when you come back, 10 points if your camera smashes to the ground. So you're going to very carefully line up that foam sheet with your cover. And make sure it is nice and smooth to avoid any bubbling or warping, because that's no good. And then after that dries, you're going to flip it over and you're going to add contact cement to the sides so that you can flip that foam over. And make sure you give yourself enough time for that to dry. I think I was a little bit too eager. And what you're going to do is wrap that foam, and this gives a really nice leather texture. Next, a little bit janky how I did it, but you're going to basically build your little box that is the book. Now looking back, I might have just used a glue gun for this. Would have been a little bit easier. Contact cement does really good on flat to flat surfaces. Just a note. So I went in afterwards and reinforced it with a glue gun. You can put the top of your little book on and then secure that also with a glue gun. Now that it's looking like a little birthday cake, we're going to move on to the details. So for me, the details are very, very important and what can make or break a prop or costume. So I wanted to make sure that I was as accurate as I could be. Once I had it sketched out, I used my wood burning tool. I was really excited with how this turned out. I think it's pretty accurate to the actual prop. But please make sure that you are in a well-ventilated area. Breathing in little bits of foam, smoke is not a great idea. Next, I sketched out the sizing and placement of the hieroglyphs and cut that out. And for the locking mechanism, I used a bowl so I can make sure that I could do a perfect circle. And then you're going to cut out 2 of these so that they go right on top of each other. I then sketched out the lock design, more or less. And then I used my super fancy cutting board to cut out the lock shape just on the top circle. Now the next part was pretty much the bane of my existence, but you're going to make a little template out of poster board, and then you're going to trace it in your heavier foam, and you're basically going to cut out about 5 trillion of these. Seriously, it took me 5,000 years. But you're going to line these up all together so it looks something like this. In addition to those little mechanisms on the binding, you're going to make little rounded pole type things. I'm good at words. Next up, you're going to use either your model magic or your clay to make the little end pieces. Now the little birds, which were also the bane of my existence. I obviously used model magic, and it was not the easiest material to work with, Basically trying to carve in any details, it kind of forms back onto itself. It's not the best, but it is definitely cheap and workable. For their little necks and spines, I used Model Magic again, and I kind of just eyed it. I don't believe that all 4 birds and their necks need to be completely identical. Of course you could do that if you really wanted to, but I was a little bit loosey-goosey with mine, if you will. And because Model Magic tends to warp when it dries, I made sure that they were in the positions that they needed to be when I let them dry overnight. Next, make sure you were thoroughly entertained, as usual. For the scarabs, I made sure that I drew out another little reference pattern so that I could get the sizing and shape right. Made sure that fit well. And then transferred it to the foam sheets. Now notice I'm just doing the outline because I go in with the burner tool and add the details later on. You're going to do 4 of these. What I did next was glue gun the spine together so that I could get a better idea of what it was going to look like all together. Now mine definitely is not screen accurate. It's kind of my own interpretation of it. If you wanted it to be more screen accurate, I would say maybe get chunkier pieces of foam. Now you're going to assemble all of your mechanisms and details and then get really excited that you survived it all. No, just me? Okay. Now I went in with my wood burning tool again and added the details of the little scarabs and burned some of my Model Magic, but shh. Now if you did glue these down before, don't worry, the glue is probably going to peel up because the heat. And I added the little scarab within the lock mechanism. Now going in with the tool again, I added some texture to the spine. After that, you can go in and add those vertical lines to the little page turning mechanisms, or whatever you would call them. Doohickeys, if you will, I don't know. And on the other side, I basically just roughed those up. Not much rhyme or reason to this. For the hieroglyphs, I first drew them out. And then I used a very, very, very thin top to my wood burning tool and started to fill those out. But be careful when you try to get fancy like me and turn it like sideways, you know, like that. Because then you'll end up messing up like that and cursing a little bit. The thinner it gets, the more sensitive to heat that it is, so just be careful. And again, don't be afraid when the foam starts to peel up on itself. You can just glue it back again after. I tried to add some details on the little birds with the wood burning tool. I don't suggest it. It smelled like someone was dying. And now one of the most satisfying parts, Plasti-Dip. This is not a necessary step. You could also just use black spray paint, but personally I like how Plasti-Dip feels and how it protects the prop. I went back in with a black acrylic paint just to get those foam bits that I missed and that the Plasti-Dip couldn't get into the little crevices. And I did not do a perfect job of this. There's still a little bit of red peeking out at some points, but you know, just do better than I did. I don't know. Another one of my favorite parts is to add the gold. Pretty much any gold acrylic paint that you get at the craft store or anything will do just fine for this. What I did was I used a gold acrylic paint but also mixed it with a little bit of gold spray paint just to add that extra sheen. After the gold was applied, I went in with a dry brush and some black and added some weathering. Because after all, this book is thousands of years old and would not be completely shiny and brand new. This part is actually really fun. And I did the same with all of the joints and mechanisms. Make sure that you get some black in the edges and realistically where there would be some buildup. This really, really helps sell the realism of it, and it's my favorite part. Now I happened to do the pages with a gold color and then added black to seem like it was pages. Upon watching the film, the pages are actually black, so it's up to you if you want to be screen accurate or not. I liked the pages gold, so... And that is it. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that some of you will try it out. Because after all, who does not want the opportunity to bring to life a dead Egyptian priest and bring upon the plagues of the earth in their living room? Take that, Bembridge scholars.